What's Inside is a pretty recent Netflix release for myself. It's, I think, a couple weeks late since it came out of me reviewing it, but you know me. I got no schedule, and it's always fucked. This movie is about a group of high school friends who are reuniting at a bachelor party for one of their friends' wedding. There's some tension, but mostly they're just having a good time, reconnecting. It's all fun and games until one of the friends named Forbes shows up and immediately, you know, tension fills the air, and he's brought a game along that might throw a huge curveball into what they've got going on that night. And that's all I want to say, because I went into this movie pretty blind, all things considered. I saw on Twitter the day the trailer dropped, like, don't watch this, it spoils the main hook of the movie, promise it will be a better experience if you go in completely blind. So when I saw that tweet, I was like, okay, done deal. Comes out in like, I forget when the trailer came out, like a month and a half later, so I was like, okay, I will hold off. You know, one of the rare instances where I will hold off on a trailer. I try to do it as much as possible, but I mean, sometimes it's just too hard to resist seeing what a new movie could look like, what kind of footage is out there, because I've heard so much buzz about stuff. Obviously, you know, a blind experience and then you're totally blown away by how amazing it is. I would say that might even be way better than, you know, seeing a trailer and being really excited for it and seeing the movie and it's still really, really great and lives up to expectations. Not having expectations at all and being like, oh my gosh, this is one of my new favorite movies. That's an incredible experience. So I did not watch a single trailer for this movie. If it came up on one of those like YouTube ads where it's like, hey, want to watch this trailer as an ad, skipped it. The only thing I knew beforehand was that it was getting some positive reception from some film festivals that it was playing at. I heard only one comparison, like it's this year's Talk to Me or Bodies, 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 and I was like, okay, so it's a horror movie, you know, to say the least. That's that much I know, and people are praising it, and because of the comparison to Talk to Me, I was like, okay, so like a horror movie, like a ghost thing, something like that, maybe with the comedy of like Bodies, 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 is that kind of what I'm getting into. This movie isn't really a horror movie, though, I came to find out watching it. It is like more of like a thriller, dark comedy, which was, you know, one of the things I was very pleasantly surprised to find out about this movie when watching it. This is from director and writer Greg Jardin. As far as I know, this is his feature directorial debut. He's worked on like some Netflix digital exclusives, shorts, stuff like that. So this is like his first step into like making a feature film. And as far as I know, it wasn't originally a Netflix movie. They had made it independently, and then once it played at these film festivals, some people wanted to buy it, and Netflix was the one who won the bid, which I guess makes sense since some of the past work that I mentioned includes working with that company. But I wanted to give him a really great round of applause real quick. Greg Jardin, he directs this movie so well. It's not just, you know, the pretty lights, you know, and it does look great. I love the use of like, you know, lighting neon lights at certain point, the way they use that in the storytelling as well. Once again, I don't want to spoil what happens. If I can, you know, prevent other people from knowing too much like I was prevented, you know, that would be great. I know it might be might be too late for some people, but hopefully I can do the same for some lucky viewer out there. But the way they utilize some lighting in the storytelling, I thought was really spectacular. It's a very original screenplay, and it's told in a very original way as well. They have these moments where they will explain stuff that happened in the past, or they will explain like a plan that they have. And the way they utilize that is not just traditional flashback scenes. It's like you see a picture and then there's like a quick edit of like almost like stop motion, but with like photography. I'm not really sure how to explain it, like these quick edits of like the pictures like moving from one thing to the next, and they're drawing on stuff. It reminded me like shades of like the directorial style of like an Edgar Wright, at least like maybe in Scott Pilgrim, or even like the quick edits he will do sometimes when like in Shaun of the Dead, for example, when Shaun's explaining multiple plans, like that kind of quick edit style. Though I was getting shades of that. Really proved, you know, in those instances that Greg Jardin, he's a director to watch out for sure. He has a very clear vision, you know, that much is apparent from how they, you know, they had this plan to do this effect, you know, do these sequences, and it all worked out. Like I was totally engrossed every single time it happened. There wasn't a point where I was like, oh, what is this? What is this style over substance nonsense? I was like, no, this is really cool, and it's really inspiring to see. You know, it shows that you do these experimental, like different things with your filmmaking and your storytelling, and it can work to the benefit of it. So you have a great directorial style, great editing, some fantastic cinematography. The way the camera will flow sometimes is just so cool to watch. You have this really, you know, genius original screenplay, and then you have these actors populating it that make it all work. This is a premise where, once again, I don't want to go too much into what happens if I can save one lucky viewer, but it does require you to like memorize people's names. Like it's not one of those movies where you can just like kind of like half pay attention and then be like, wait, who is this again? But this movie does a really good job in the first couple minutes of getting you adjusted to these characters. You know, you memorize their names, you match them with who they are, and you get to know them in such a quick amount of time. You feel like you know so much about these characters. They're very well fleshed out, and the cast is all completely game. You know, they sell so much of the comedy, of the like genuine thrills that happen, and the drama, because like I mentioned, it's a friendly high school reunion before a wedding, so you have a lot of like great camaraderie, these great comedic moments where the cast is showing they're doing a great job with the chemistry with themselves, because you totally buy that they used to be high school friends. Absolutely, like I believe it with this chemistry. But then also when the drama seeps in, it makes sense because they're high school friends and they haven't seen each other in a little bit, so it's natural some things would boil up, whether it's another person's fault or not. And they all do a really great job of selling that. The two who are, I guess you could say, like the leads of the film, and they have like the most drama because it's between them, it's their relationship. That would be the actors Brittany O'Grady and James Morosini. They play Shelby and Cyrus. The movie opens with them, and it's such an interesting like interpersonal relationship thing, and where they take it throughout the rest of the film. Like there are points in this movie where I start to go like, oh fuck, like it's that kind of like storytelling that had me so locked in. I was like, God damn, like I can't believe they brought this back. I can't believe they're going in this direction. My gosh. Another actor who I really enjoyed is the actor David Thompson. He plays Forbes in the movie. As soon as he walks on screen, you realize there's something about this guy, and the way he talks, like he's got a great voice. He's got this charm. But when he arrives in the movie, there is a sense of you going like, okay, something must be up with him. But he does have like a good natural like kind of charisma. So it was a really good choice to have him, and then him, to stick to the performance, and trust his instincts in that way, because he creates a character with his performance matched up with the screenwriting itself, a character who you're like, is there something even going on with this guy? Or is he just, is he just a little odd, They do a really great job of keeping, at least me, guessing throughout. And it builds to this ending that I thought was just perfect. I loved it so much. If I could have any issue with it though, I think it's just, I would have liked to see a little bit more. And it's one of those endings where you kind of get the gist of what's happening and everything. But I just, maybe it's just the selfish part of me that just like these characters and wants to see more movie all the time. I wanted to see a little bit more, but that if that's the only issue, that's a pretty good issue to have, I think, because it just shows, that your audience, me, is really engaged with the material and just was really vibing with the project overall. Before I give the grade, I did want to, use this as a bit of a segue just to very quickly talk about the release of this movie. Why it was so easy for me to go into this movie completely blind is because it is a Netflix release. Netflix acquired it. Like I said, it was showing at film festivals, and from what I heard from the Chris Stuckman pre-production podcast, which Greg Jardin was on, there were a couple other studios bidding for it, but Netflix, of course, comes in, and Netflix pays quite a bit for some movies, and some people have pointed out maybe it's because they want to also compensate for potential back ends that actors are not getting. The back end, of course, is money that is made after a box office run. But because it was a streaming release, instead of going to the movie theater and like seeing like trailers pop up all the time, like instead of seeing the Speak No Evil trailer 15 million times, both of them, instead it's like it's released online by Netflix, but if I really wanted to avoid it, like I mentioned earlier in the video, I can. If it pops up as a YouTube ad, I skip it. Very easy thing to do. But if it was playing in theaters, yeah, the trailer probably would have popped up a couple times. I see movies all the time, so at the very least, at least one movie that I saw would have had that trailer, depending on also who's distributing it, I guess. So there's a part of me that is appreciative that I was able to, have that experience of going in completely blind, not seeing the trailer and knowing so much before going in. But that being said, there is a part of me that is like, man, it does seem like it had this big hype before it came out. Like, this is something really special. You're going to want to watch this when it hits on Netflix. And now that it is on Netflix, it's kind of like, I'm not sure how to gauge like how much it's connected with people as far as like, have people even watched it? I don't know any stats. It's not like they release like in-depth stats anyways. You can see on the Netflix top 10 on like the app. And every once in a while, if there's like a really massive hit, Netflix will tell you. once again, not give you necessary numbers. Most of the time they will just tell you it is the #1 movie ever for us, and you just have to accept that. And I'm glad it found distribution. I'm glad that Netflix offered money that was, suitable for Greg Jardin and company. Good on you for making your bank, obviously. But there is a part of me that is like, man, this would have been really cool to like watch in a theater with a good audience, and I know people are jaded about some of the theater experience. I understand that, but every once in a while, and I don't even think, at least for where I'm at, it's not very often you'll get like a horrible crowd. Like I would say, like, let's say 75% of the time I have like pretty great movie-going experiences, and that other 25% isn't even necessarily the entire audience. It could also be just the teenagers that will try to sneak into movies on weekend nights, and they'll come in like about halfway through a movie and be like, come on guys, come on, and then they'll stay for a bit, and then like after laughing so much at something they're watching out of context because they don't know what the fuck is happening, they just fucking leave eventually. It's like, oh, thanks guys, you guys are fucking cool. But obviously those are in short bursts. Anyways, what I'm trying to say though is that if you could watch this in a theater with a great audience, and it's everyone seeing it for the first time too, you will get those moments like I was talking about before where I was like, oh my god, you can experience that with a crowd, like how many people are laughing at the jokes, like especially because it is a dark comedy. See what will make this theater laugh as well. See how hooked they get to it. Like if you can like hear people like gasping, stuff like that, that's a magical theater experience. And I feel like this movie could have had something to that effect if it was released in theaters. And because I'm assuming it wasn't made for a whole lot of money, if you give it just a solid enough push, it could have been a solid box office hit as well. Obviously, it's a roll of the dice, it's luck as far as like what's a box office hit, whether it's, budget or marketing, whatever you want to say about it, but I feel like they could have had something here, and I always feel like it's probably a good gamble to try anyways. Even if it may not be the most people showing up like you would have wanted, I would say even for a movie that like flops or doesn't do very well, those varying kind of degrees, you will still be seeing it with some people in your theater. There will be at least a couple people, and that's still like a good, like, that could still be a good thing to experience nonetheless. And I don't mean to be like so anti-Netflix. I used to, think it was cool what they were doing back when they were starting with their originals, as far as like, we're taking the movies that theaters, don't want to mess with anymore because they think it'll flop. We will give them a push on our streaming service. They'll probably be the most watched thing because we're pushing it on our homepage, stuff like that. But now that they have so much to release, there's so much that they are making, whether it is movies or TV shows, animation, kids content, and then, sometimes they will, promote heavily, hey, this thing that came out years ago is now on our service and you love nostalgia, right? So it's like they're promoting so many things. So something like It's What's Inside, if required by Netflix like years ago, like back in 2018, 17, sometime there, it probably would have been a big thing, because that was when they were first starting out, when they didn't have so much. But now in this day and age, most of the time with their original, unless it's like one of their bigger ones, like maybe Rebel Moon, maybe Enola Holmes, like one of those bigger titles. Most of the times it's, one trailer released a month or a month and a half before the release date, very quick and basically just kind of like dropped in there. There's not a whole lot of promotion outside of that, and it's just another cog in the Netflix machine, unless you're lucky to be like a Stranger Things or something like that. So it's a little frustrating. I'm mostly frustrated with just how Netflix is and has been operating for quite a bit, because something like It's What's Inside should be hailed right now, I would say. I feel like people should still be talking about it, should still be discovering it, especially like if it was in theaters, word of mouth spreading, people discovering it, and we see those box office numbers rise, stuff like that, that kind of story that I love talking about on my other show, Box Office Talk, and it just feels like it's been dropped on Netflix, and the people who are like always online on Twitter will talk about it, but just culturally, like around the world, people discovering it, in real life, not just because of Twitter. I don't know. It's just, you have these other like, Amazon will put some of their originals out in theaters. Not always, but most of the time they will have like, an Amazon MGM branded thing that'll go to theaters for a bit. Shudder, has some of their movies, have limited runs, whether they're partnered with like IFC or something like that. And when you consider like, a couple years ago with Glass Onion, when Netflix released that for 1 week only in so few theaters, that movie still, for the number of theaters it had, it made quite a bit of money. So imagine if they kept it in theaters and had it in, instead of 700, like 2,000, 3,000, whatever the max number would be for Knives Out 2. Imagine the money they would have gotten from that run. But you know, just it's a bummer. And people want to, I think it proves also people will want to see movies like that in the theater. People will want to see some Netflix originals if, you know, people deem it worthy in the theater. Instead of like the bullshit like limited run in theaters for awards movies, and it's really like maybe one theater in New York or however they do it, because it's not like it spreads to other limited theaters throughout the country. I don't know, I just wanted, you know, after talking about how much I loved It's What's Inside, you know, I started to think about like, man, it does not seem like it's catching the Netflix fires here. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe it is #1 on Netflix, or it was when it came out a couple weeks ago. But it certainly seems like people aren't really still talking about it, and I feel like that's so common with so many streaming movies. It's not even just Netflix, it's other streaming movies where they adopt the same mentality of like, we can promote it just like a month before, you know, one trailer a month before, do nothing, and then it can drop, and then that's it. And maybe we can cancel it because people aren't watching it. I don't know why. Okay, I'm done. I'm gonna give It's What's Inside an A. Like I said before, I just wanted to see a little bit more with the characters at the end of the film, I want to see every angle possible. But like I said also, that's a good issue to have because it shows that I was engaged in the movie, because I was thoroughly engrossed with the acting, with the storytelling, the director, Greg Jardin. I cannot wait to see what he does next because he has such a fantastic vision. And if this is like his first feature debut, you know, something this original and fun and just cool, you know, what else does he have up his sleeve? I desperately want to know. But if you've seen It's What's Inside, leave your thoughts down in the comments below. As always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.